there. I don't have a crime channel on YouTube. None of that stuff. What I am is a Tenerife local. I'm an expat from the UK. Now, I work for a pretty well-known water sports company. We do excursions, hire of jet skis, all that kind of stuff. We're easy to find. We work a lot with the Coast Guard here. They kind of keep us legal. They're good people to know. Tell us what we can and can't do. And they're very reliable, very knowledgeable. On Saturday, just gone, we are talking to Coast Guard, a member of the Coast Guard supervision team for Tenerife. So like the Canary Islands have their own Coast Guard supervision teams, the Balearic Islands and so on. And we are told on Saturday that allegedly an anonymous tip-off had been received in relation to the ongoing search for the missing persons case, which is obviously Jay Slater. I don't know what form this was, whether it was a shady phone call or a letter or an email. I have no idea what format it was, received in by whoever it was received by. Now, what I do know on top of this is on Sunday, when the Euros final is on, bars, clubs, restaurants here are kicking. And I'm not just talking with locals. There's tourists, there's German tourists, UK tourists. Everybody's here. And everywhere's really busy. Now, everybody that I seem to bump into or hear the conversations on Sunday were talk of the town is they found remains in relation to this case. I don't think any more of this, because I've already heard someone on Saturday, a pretty decent source from the Coast Guard, saying, there's been a tip-off and, apparently they're going to go and search for it. So I don't think any more of this on Sunday. Monday, I look at the UK media. I like to stay, abreast of what's going on back home. It's easier than looking at Spanish media, more relevant to me. And there's the breaking news from the BBC that they have just found remains, and they, suspected it in the area where Jay Slater was last seen, or where his phone last pinged. Now, this is a head scratcher to me. So I'm like, well, if we're hearing this locally in Tenerife over the weekend, that there's been this apparent tip-off, this information received, that people who aren't locals on Sunday, a Euros final game, are talking about this. It's really strange. Now, what's even weirder is on Saturday, the entire mountain range area near Masca was closed off. Now, I've never been to Masca. I have no reason to. It's a place you go if you're into hiking, cycling, that kind of stuff. It's really big in September as it starts to cool off. Unless you've got a reason to go there, you don't go there. But I know it was closed off, apart from to locals. So if you're familiar with this area, you'll know that you have to have passes to go to certain places on the island. Now, for what you'll see and think is a super hotel or a private golf club, it's not. Most of those places here in Tenerife are private residencies or they're apartment buildings for workers. I'm sure some are on Airbnb. But to get to those places, you need to have a pass, and it will basically be your registration of your vehicle, your residency. You keep it in your window of your car, on your moped, wherever. And they're there to obviously stop people from trespassing into places that aren't tourist traps. They're also there to make sure that people are safe. So frequently, and not just because of like this investigation into a missing person, but frequently here in Tenerife, those mountain ranges will be closed off, especially in winter. So if a storm comes, there's debris and there's all kinds of crap coming off those mountains. They don't want people just wandering around or in hire cars or going for a jog, whatever it may be, in those areas when there is a potential for danger when there is adverse weather. So that's a normal thing. But that's been closed now since Saturday to anybody that's not a local. If you haven't got a pass, you will be turned around at the bottom of those mountain ranges on those roads and sent back into mainland Tenerife. That's factual. What I also find really weird as well is that here, if you're familiar with this area or you've come out here to maybe be involved in the search that was going on, maybe a bit of dark tourism on bulletin boards, I'm sure they've been posted on social media. I'd be amazed if they haven't been. There's maps that are being given out to just locals and to tourists and anybody that's come out to volunteer in this search. And they're grid line maps of the Masca mountain range. And that's purely so people know what areas have been searched, whether it's in an official capacity, whether it's third-party volunteers, just to stop people going over the same parts of land while this search was going on. Additionally, in that, it was announced in the media, and again, everyone here knew that a good couple of weeks ago now, the official search from the Tenerife police had been called off. Now, what I've seen since then, since this discovery's been broken in the UK, that they found remains in relation to this case, is that there was apparently a shady, in the background search still being carried out by local authorities here, by the police, and there wasn't. It didn't happen. There was not an ongoing search going on, which makes me think that what we were all hearing here on Saturday, which was a talk of the town on Sunday during the Euros, that this had already broke and there'd been this alleged tip-off and they'd already discovered remains, was all true. That's the only thing that makes any sense to anybody here. Why would you try and tell, the media at large, as it were, that, we've been doing our own investigation and the search never stopped? We know it stopped. We know that the roads got closed to that mountain range over the weekend when all this stuff was going around here in Tenerife. It was local knowledge. Real head scratcher. Maybe this is already out there. Maybe people already know this, but something doesn't add up here. Something isn't right with the way this is being reported, whether it's just a lack of communication or holding back knowledge between the police in Tenerife and the police in the UK. We don't know. But the timeline is just not right. What's being broken in UK media as breaking news on Monday was already common knowledge here on Saturday. And that was Saturday morning. So it's been, 72 hours or more since that's already come out. And I'm just baffled to why only now is it suddenly become this hot topic of, we found these body parts on Monday and all this stuff. No, something isn't right here. Something doesn't line up. Now, there are 1,001 other conspiracy theories. I try not to indulge myself with the ones that are online, but the ones that go around here, yeah, there's some interesting stuff. But that's a story for somebody else to dive into. I'm only telling you what I factually know, what I've seen as a local, and you can kind of take this information and any way you want. But that's what's going on here locally. And I think it needs to be kind of known to whatever degree that what you're seeing back in the UK is not what's going on here in Tenerife.